mann som vecklar bröd och snusbullar.
Hello everyone, hello world, it's Shawna once again with DisruptApps coming to you for another tutorial in our Random Content Generator series. And reviewing what we learned last time in the last lesson, we learned about functions within functions, nested functions, and callbacks. And we did examples of how to do all these things. So in this lesson, we're going to put everything that we've learned so far in this series together. And I'm talking about classes and IDs and how to use our JavaScript variables and JavaScript functions and how we use nested functions, and then harkening back to string templates and string interpolation and arrays and loops. We're going to start putting all that awesome stuff together to start building the random content generator. And in this tutorial, I plan to put all this together and make it a really simple starting point so you can see the bigger and grander and cool things we're going to be doing with this application. So we have all this code. We're not going to need it anymore, and I'm just going to go ahead and delete all of this code. See ya. And Control S to save. And the first thing we want to do is we want to create a function, and I'm going to call that function generate paragraph. And then we'll get our syntax sorted out. So function generate paragraph. And then to test it out, I'm going to do a console log. Console.log, and I'm going to come here and put in parentheses generate paragraph fired. Control S to save. Not quite yet. I need to copy down here and then invoke the function. Now I can Control S and save, and let's open up the application in our web browser. And I'm going to hit F12, and there we go. Generate paragraph fired on JavaScript line 15. Oh, sorry, on JavaScript line 5. All right, and there we go, line 5. All right, so I'm going to come and format my code both in my JavaScript and in my HTML. And since we're dynamically generating the root content, I'm going to tighten up that root div and make it all nice and pretty. Get rid of that comment from a couple of tutorials ago. Get rid of that script that we're not using, and I'm going to go ahead and delete that. And now we've got some cleaned up, concise code, and here we go. So let's start generating some random content. I need to go back to my page, refresh. Okay, I need to get rid of that content, and that's going to be in the index scripts. So I need to go ahead and just delete the index scripts. So now our external JavaScripts that are being referred to are the nav menu render and then the rand cont gen.js. All right. So now nothing should be rendering. Oop, I got to save it first. Control S, come back to index, refresh. Why is it not refreshing? Oh, I'm on privacy policy, duh. There we go. Now it's working. Cool. So getting back to our JavaScript. So the first thing we need to do, in this tutorial I want to start really simple. And I think I'm going to do the arrays, set up some arrays, and then some randomization, and then spit out some randomized content so you can see where we will be going with this. So in the app that I built, I have an array called p noun starters. Okay, and you'll see why I named it this way. And I'm going to go ahead and copy all the content that I have before in my app that's completed. And you'll see here, this starts for P noun as pronoun, starters. And the way that I've designed this nomenclature is that these are pronouns that you hear very often in linguistics, and they're starters. So often you're going to see I, me, he, she, you, they, them, itself. Now some of these won't be grammatically correct per se, but that's the whole point of why I built this random content generator. So this array is going to have pronouns, or things that usually start at the sentence that are nouns. Okay? Okay, there's a mistake I need to fix. I don't know what I was thinking when I was developing that. So we've got our starters, and I wanted to do something really simple this go around. I have another array called let simple verbs equals to, and I'm going to copy and paste an array of simple verbs, right? Now I went through here and I typed all of this out. I did my research. I didn't use artificial intelligence, and I'm going to be kind of harsh, and I am not going to post this code for you, because if you want this, you need to work and stop being a lazy developer. Or you can probably go on ChatGPT and ask it, oh, make me an array of simple verbs, and it'll spit it out for you. But I digress, but that's why I hate AI, because it makes people lazy. Anyhow, so we're basically going to have an array of noun, pronoun starters, and simple verbs. And we're going to randomize this, right? So with that, we need to get a variable. We need to make a variable with the length, because we'll be needing that for our randomization. P noun starters length. Make it easy to remember. This way you know what the code means. And like we went back to doing the loops and arrays and loops together, the dynamic duo, we understand why we use the length. So basically what this variable is going to do, it's going to get the length, how many indexes, how many of the pronoun starters are in this array. And we're going to do the same thing with the simple verbs. So we'll come down here and we'll say let simple verbs length equal, and I always like to do this to make sure my text is correct. All right, so now we have this variable is set to the length of this simple verbs array, or how many indexes, or how many positions, or how many words we have in the simple verbs array. Alrighty, so we've got that set up. All right, so the next thing we need to do is we need to make some randomness, right? So let's go let rand, which will stand for rand, simple verb equals to math.floor. Okay, you remember that, right? And then we'll come in here and we'll say math.random method asterisk, and then what we want to do is we want to pass in the length of the simple verbs, right? So we'll come up here. Nope, sorry. So we want to pass in the length of the simple verbs array. That's why we declared it up here. So let's go ahead and copy that and then paste it here. Control S to save. And I also want to do the same thing for the P noun starters up here, right? So copy that. I will do let rand for random. I'm going to do an underscore here p noun starters, because I don't want that small p, but I want to preserve that name. So I'm just going to put an underscore here so I know what's going on. And equal math dot floor, and we have our opening and closing parentheses, and then math dot random. I'll do that method, and then we'll have an asterisk, and then we need to get the length of that p noun starters up here. So we'll just copy that, and then we'll hit paste, Control S to save. And all right, so let's see what that gets us, right? So let's go ahead and console.log. We'll get random simple verb, and then copy console log, copy that, paste this, Control S to save, come here, refresh, and we get 77 and 10. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, we're going to get the 77th index in here from the simple verbs, right? And then we're going to get to the 10th index of the pronoun starters up here. So we're going to come in here and get number 10 out of here. And then refresh again, and we get 18 and 22. And so we're going to get the 18 index from simple verbs, and we're going to get the 22 from the p noun starters, right? So we're randomly getting some random index, right? Some integer, some whole number, whole integer. So what we want to do now is we want to come into the index, and we want to use that random number to come in here and get one of the text from here, one of the indexes, one of the random indexes. And then hearkening back to what we learned earlier about referencing the index, we have a certain type of syntax that we use. And let me go ahead and comment here so people will understand what the process is. Let me go ahead and I should have done that from the start, but create random integers, right? To use for getting random text from array. All right. So here we're just consoling log random integer, right? So down here we're going to console log. Let me go ahead and get that console log. Coming out. Come on, paste. Then here we're going to reference the array and pass in the random integer. All right, so we'll come up here and we'll copy the simple verbs. So we're going to reference the array, and then we're going to use our bracketry for our syntax, and then we're going to use the simple verbs. We use random simple verb, the number, the integer, pass it, put it in, pass it there, and then same thing with the p noun starters. We'll copy it, the array, and then we'll do the brackets, and then what we'll do is we'll take the random p noun starters that we declared and put it here. And if everything works, we should console out log the random index number, the number itself, the integer, and then we'll go ahead and pass out, and then we'll go ahead and grab the random text from our two arrays. So Control S to save, hit refresh, and we see expect in an hour. Hour is a pronoun, or p noun starter is what I created for that array. Let's hit refresh again. You are fly. Well, what does that mean? You appear. Myself sleep. I stand. There we go. We got something that makes sense. Well, that's cool. Alrighty. And so the next thing I want to do is we need to create a variable to put all these things together and spit something out. So this is going to be the random content append variable. And for me, I use append, and that's just what I base all my apps off of. That when I render content or dynamically render content, I always use append. So we'll just set an append, and we'll set that equal to, and then we're going to do template strings and string interpolation. That means using the backtick marks. Okay, so just for this demonstration, getting started, I'll put in some $signs and curly braces, and what we'll do is we'll pass in the p noun starters with the bracketry for getting the random content. So I'll put that in here, and then I'll do the same thing for the simple verbs. Control S to save. And let's go ahead and console.log. We'll go ahead and console log that out. All right, Control S to save. Let me go ahead and comment that out for now. Hit refresh, and appear themselves appear. Refresh again. Mine begin. Anyone understand? Ours hold. I produce. There we go. So we have the beginnings of a varsity football player. So what I want to do now is I want to go ahead and Control X and come down here and paste it inside our function, our generate paragraph function. And we'll format the code, clean up some white spaces, and then our function generate paragraph is now being invoked down here. Control S to save and refresh. And who's mean? It's self-debate. Them decide. Well, that's cool. So I've walked you step by step so far to show you and understand what happens when we start building out more complex sentences. And I'm not really worried about capitalization at this point, and I showed you how to do that in the previous video. And I'll be doing the capitalization here later on. Well, all this is working very well, and there's one thing that I need to finish up here at the end that I wanted to go ahead and show you these so you would understand what's going on with the randomization. But there is one small issue here, one problem that we need to address, and that is the length. And let's look at the p noun starter's length, right? And this is the array that we're referencing, right? So let's come in here and let's console.log the p noun starter's length. All right, and I'm going to comment out these so we can just focus on what I need to talk about and address here, right? So the length of p noun starters, we have 30. We have a length of 30, right? But remember, we start at 0 index. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yada, yada, yada. So what's going to happen in the case of console.log, and we call, and let me go up here, copy the array, and what happens if randomly we call 30? because p now length, because this is equal to the integer 30, because that's how long it is. But remember, indexes start with 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, yada, yada, yada. So what happens if we pass in p nouns and we try to get 30? Now let's see, this is on line 16, so come here and we'll refresh. We get undefined. Well, that's not a good thing, so we got to fix that. Well, how do we fix that? How do we prevent that 30 from ever showing up? Well, it's really simple. You just come in here, and in our math.floor, in the parentheses where we have this, all you got to do is put in parentheses minus 1. Okay? And hit Control Save. So what this does, I'm just going to temporarily move this down here. What this is saying is that, you know, with the math.random here, with the syntax for the with the math.floor, this is always going to be 0. And the range, this asterisk kind of indicates this we're doing with a range, right? And so we had that the length would be 30. But we don't want to use 30, so we just knock it down by 1 to 29, because up here there's only 29 actual indexes. Remember, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, yada, 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 27, 28, 29. So we don't have a 30 index. And by simply modifying the code by putting this -1, that will prevent us from ever accessing the 30, number 30. And basically, all you have to do is come up here, the same thing with the simple verbs. We're going to knock that down by 1. All right. So let's go ahead and tighten up our code here. Control S to save, and then I want to come in here, bring these back to where they are, and I'm going to comment that out. Control S to save, refresh. And so we have undefined on line 14. What did I forget to do here? Yeah, because again, we don't have a 30 index. No, we only have a 29 index. So that's always going to be undefined because it doesn't exist. So that's not a problem. So coming back here, refresh. Okay, everything's working again. And then let me go ahead and, just to show you, we'll do this p-noun starters on line 14. I'll manually type in the index of 29, right? And so the index of 29 will be its. Control S to save. We'll come here to refresh, and we see its. And then we'll come here, and then we'll bump it up to 30. Control S to save. Hit refresh, and now it's undefined. So that's why we have to come in here and modify this to make sure that we never get an error or an undefined. So this is going to be a good foundation for everything to come. This is just starting out with generating a paragraph. And later on, I had this typed here earlier, when this app gets more involved and we have more components that are being dynamically and randomly rendered, we're going to have like a general tab title and a general meta tags that's going to be its own standalone function, like generate a paragraph. And instead of putting everything into one giant major function like in here, we're going to call this like overall master function, if you want to think of it that way, here. And we can even make this a self-invoking function if we want, but having these functions called here just makes it easier for us to maintain our code and for code readability. So, well, with that, I'm going to relax a little bit and then start editing this video. So I'll see you later. Bye-bye.